Right. Good evening, members and officers of the Council and members of the press and public. I welcome you to this meeting of the Council. So I shall go through as usual the normal procedures. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs, either through the security doors to my right or opposite the lifts in the foyer. Please do not use the lifts. Please reassemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? I don't see anyone. Any filming or recording will not be permitted for any item of business where exempt or confidential information is considered following the exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. We have the usual restrictions on the use of mobile phones. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and they are not used to make or receive phone calls whilst the meeting is in progress. Good. So, on to agenda item number 1, apologies from absence. I have apologies from Councillors Ara, Gregory and Farrance. Do I have any other apologies for absence? Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor John Dennis and Councillor Linda Potts.
Thank you, Councillor Piper. Any other apologies? I don't see any other hands lifted. So, agenda item 2, announcements. I've not actually been informed of any announcements tonight, but what I would make clear is my birthday. And so in consequence, I need to get home to my birthday party. And I just know that we're going to have a straightforward meeting this evening. Councillor Everett. Calm down, calm down. Oh. Happy birthday to you. Well, that is charming, and wasn't after that. Well, yes. Yeah, could have done.
Chairman, I'm sure the jelly will still be there when you get home, Chairman.
Well, I'll look forward to that, yes. Thanks very much indeed. Anyway, look, so no other announcements of any official nature. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, an apology. This hadn't dawned on me when we had the pre-meet earlier this week, I haven't filled in the form. Point of clarification, am I allowed to do that post this meeting? But I have to declare an interest, I'm afraid, on the budget item, because one of the items under the fees and charges, I was advised by our legal department I was not allowed to comment on, or vote on, or discuss. And therefore, given that that forms part of the budget, presumably I will not be allowed to vote on the budget, so I will have to abstain. So my apologies to you. I need to declare the interest, and my apologies to the leader, and also to Councillor Saunders for the hard work that he and the team have put in. But my decision to abstain is based on a conflict of interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Piper. You've made that very plain. I just wonder briefly if I might turn to our legal officer for any clarification.
Yeah, that is correct, Chair. The Council will need to declare an interest as you have, so you will abstain from voting and when it comes to the voting part of it. Thank you.
There we are. Right. Well, thank you for that, Councillor Piper. Agenda item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 8th of December 2022 be approved and signed as a correct record. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Second that, Chair.
Do members agree? So, agenda item 5, the Treasury Management Strategy and Annual Investment Strategy for 2023-2024. It's your night, Councillor Saunders. I certainly am. We're all looking forward to it.
Then I shall stand. Chairman, this is Agenda Item 5, Treasury Management. This report is required in accordance with the CIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management. It covers our capital spending and financing plans and its Treasury strategy, backed by prudential indicators and limits. The report also presents for approval the Council's minimum revenue provision policy, capital strategy, investment strategy and non-treasury investments report for the next financial year. A draft copy of this report was considered by the Governance and Audit Committee on the 30th of November 2022, seems a long while ago now, doesn't it, and by the Cabinet on the 12th of January 2023. Chairman, I move the recommendations within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Ashby. Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, Councillor Saunders. Given the Council's long-term borrowing, short-term investments and internal borrowing, we thank our finance officers for their prudent approach on the public purse. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Yates. Do members agree? Thank you very much indeed. Agenda Item 3, the HRA budget for 2023-2024. Sorry, yes, Item 6 it certainly is. There you are, me jumping the gun. Very observant this evening, aren't you all? Now then, I would advise that in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 17.6, I will call for a recorded vote on the motion or any amendments and substantive motions. I call once again on Councillor David Saunders.
Thank you, Chairman. I will move on to Agenda Item 6. I prefer to go back to 3, but I'll carry on with Agenda Item 6, which is the HRA budget. Next year's HRA budget is underpinned by a 7% increase in rents, which is in line with the maximum cap set nationally by the government. This equates to an average rental increase of £6.20 per week for our tenants, the majority of which, and that's approximately 75%, will be covered by increased housing benefit or universal credit payments to our tenants. The HRA has been running at a deficit for a number of years, partly due to the imposition of statutory rental reductions and then caps being placed on rent increases in recent years. I enjoyed that noise. The deficit has been put under further strain this year due to the high inflation environment and the consequent increase in the council's costs. As such, this level of proposed rent increase is needed to continue to drive the HRA to a balanced and sustainable financial position and also to finance our ambitious affordable house building programme and housing investment plan. Chairman, I move the recommendations within the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saunders. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Ashby. Councillor Whitehead, you've indicated.
Thank you, Chair, and happy birthday. We are being asked today to approve an average rent increase for our tenants of £6.20 per week, or £322.40 per year. Our strategic priorities aim to maintain a rent and charging policy that is both affordable for residents and ensures the resources needed for investment in homes and services. For many of our residents, no increase is affordable, but we are also required to fulfil the last part of this priority, to ensure the resources needed for investment in homes and services. Without adequate central investment, both parts of this priority are in direct conflict with each other, regardless of the best intentions of all officers and councillors involved. The best we can often do is continue to protect those who are most vulnerable. In Labour's last budget, that is exactly what I did. In 2020, I proposed an average increase of 83p per week in order to maintain our portfolio and reduce our housing list. I did so only after deliberately excluding residents on affordable rent from that rise, as they were most likely to not have the rent increase covered by housing benefit. At that point, the Conservative group refused to support our budget, citing this 83p increase in rent, even though this was an increase that deliberately excluded costs towards those whose increase would not be covered wholly by benefits. Today, we are being asked to approve an increase of £6.20 per week, or £322.40 per year, at a time when there are extraordinary financial pressures on residents. We are asked to note that roughly 3/4, or 75% of our tenants are accessing benefits, which can reduce the impact of this rise. Conversely, that means that 1 in 4 will be affected by it. On 12th of January, I asked Cabinet to exclude tenants on affordable rent from this increase, as I did in 2020. Today, I again ask Cabinet to consider the impact this will have on those who are already facing hardship. I know that these decisions are difficult because I have taken them. I know that it is often an impossible equation to balance because I have tried. But I've always tried to protect those who need it. And being asked to approve a 7-fold increase that does not provide that protection, when I face censure in the rejection of an entire budget based on an 83p increase that did protect the most vulnerable, I'm left considering 2 things. Firstly, the impact that this increase will have, regardless of intent, and secondly, that for any councillor who refused to support the 2020 budget based on an 83p increase, a raised hand tonight is a public acknowledgement that refusing to support that budget was simply a game to avoid supporting Labour. I will play no such games, because all of us need to be better than that. We support each other in finding the right decisions, and we build public faith in politics in doing so. I ask instead that we simply look at the gravity of what we are being asked to agree and explore what discussions have been had around my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Whitehead. Do I have any other speakers? We shall... yeah. Councillor Bayford, sorry.
Our tenants benefit from paying rents that are substantially lower than market rate. Those who are financially vulnerable will not pay the increase, as it will be covered by the benefits they receive. We feel it is crucial that the HRA moves out of deficit, particularly so that the housing are able to carry out their ambitious building programme in order to help meet the increasing needs of our residents, which I think is understood by all. Our tenant and leaseholder group have approved the increases, but request that when tenants are informed of this, an explanation of how the rent money is spent is included. We have agreed to this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayford. Any other speakers? And I don't see anybody. I shall ask the Interim Head of Legal and Monitoring Officer Services to conduct a recorded vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, you're voting for recommendation either for, against or abstention. I'll call the names in alphabetical order, so if you just indicate for or against. Councillor Alban.
Against.
Chair, sorry, can I...
Sorry,
just
Councillor
for
Ashby, I
clarity.
didn't see you.
So, sorry, are we clear? Was Councillor Whitehead proposing an amendment, or she wasn't? Okay. Just
No,
to be clear,
I didn't.
can we just clarify what we're actually voting on here?
I thought Councillor Whitehead was giving an explanation of her position with respect to this item, and she was not proposing, so far as I'm aware, an amendment. Certainly she didn't mention it.
Happy to clarify, Chair. No, as I'd already asked Cabinet to consider it, I was simply asking for feedback on what had been discussed and considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just so, seeking that we are voting to agree the HRA budget as written. Thank you.
Are we clear what we're agreeing on? It's the recommendation for the HRA budget. Right, let's start again. Councillor Alban.
In the part of the clarification, I vote for, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Ashby.
For.
Councillor Austin. Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Bambridge. Councillor Jill Bayford. Councillor Robert Bayford.
For.
Councillor Boyd. Councillor Braidwood.
For.
Councillor Coleman Cook.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Crittenden. Councillor Curry. Councillor Dexter. Councillor Duckworth. Councillor Everett. Councillor Fellows. Councillor Garner. Councillor Hart. Councillor Hopkinson. Councillor Huxley. Councillor Keane. Councillor Cupp. Councillor Lace. Councillor Patmore. Councillor Paul Moore. Councillor Anne-Marie Nixley. Nixie, sorry. Four. Apologies. Councillor Ovenden. Councillor Parson. Councillor Linda Piper. Councillor Stuart Piper. Councillor Pugg. Councillor Rattigan. Councillor Rofe. Councillor Rofe. 4. Councillor Rogers. No? Councillor Rogers? 4. Councillor Osinski. Councillor David Saunders.
4.
Councillor Maeve Saunders. Councillor Savage.
4.
Councillor Scobie. 4. Councillor Scott. 4. Councillor Shrub. 4. Councillor Smith. 4. Councillor Tomlinson. 4. Councillor Towning. 4. Councillor Wallin. 4. Councillor Whitehead.
In consideration of the tenant and leaseholder group, 4.
Councillor Vink. 4. Councillor Wright. 4. Councillor Yates.
4.
That's unanimous.
That was unanimous, members, as I'm sure you realise. So we'll press on to agenda item 7, budget for the 2023-2024 and medium-term financial strategy 2022-2026. 5. Yes, 6. I would advise that in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 70.6, I will call again for a recorded vote on the motion or any amendments and substantive motions. I therefore call once again on Councillor David Saunders.
Thank you, Chairman, and I guess this is the main event this evening. I'm very pleased to be able to present a balanced budget for 23-24 to the Council this evening. The budget setting process began in the summer of 2022, and Cabinet and officers have dedicated a tremendous amount of time and effort to get to the position we are now in, that is, with a balanced budget. My thanks go to all who have been involved and contributed to this process, and I have to say that the financial team has given myself superb support, and that goes for all of the budget holders that attended all of the star chambers that we held, all 19 of them, in order to come up with this budget, this balanced budget. Despite what may seem like a lengthy and complicated process, and believe you me, it was, this level of planning is of critical importance. It's how we continue to deliver the services that matter to the people and protect and support our most vulnerable residents. This report sets out the Cabinet's recommendations to Council for next year's budget. We are recommending to increase our net spending on local services by £3.5 million or 19.6% for the budget year. It is accepted that this is a significant increase, but the District Council faces the same cost increases as everyone else on fuel, transport and pay. And this has to be funded, I'm afraid. Inflation is at a 40-year high, and the current economic climate makes it difficult to predict the future. And I wouldn't like to second guess what the future holds for us. In addition to the increased cost of delivering services, the wider difficult economic climate means that demand for some of our key services, most notably temporary accommodation for the homeless people, is rising. Providing a safety net for people who have nowhere to live is one of the most important things that we do, but it is demand-driven and costs, I'm afraid, are rising. I'm also proud to be presenting a number of proposals to invest in some of the Council's key services which make a difference to our local people. With more spending on priorities such as an improved CCTV system, the recruitment of 5 coastal enforcement officers, and more money for seaweed collection and coastal cleansing. Despite the fact that inflation is running at around 10%, our core funding has only increased by 5.8%, and the council is only allowed to increase council tax by a maximum of 3%. Therefore, we look to maximise our local income so that we can improve and provide quality services for local people. We're doing this by maximising key income streams, by changing services which are only used by a limited proportion of the residents. It is important the council organises itself in ways that maximise that income for investment in services, whilst balancing this with managing the input of our residents and service users. As such, our strategy has been to apply a broad 10% increase to fees and charges where possible, and it's not always been possible, which is expected to generate additional income of £610,000 for next year's budget. The proposed fees and charges are set out in Annex 1 to this report. However, before we enter into debate, I need to draw members' attention to an error regarding charges for the water users group. The proposed fees for annual membership for the water users group is listed on page 144 of the agenda as £150. However, this figure is in error. With a 10% increase on last year's fees, this would be approximately £80. But in order to fund the rollout of replacement locks and keys, improved signage and also improve the swim zone marker buoys, the fee is proposed to be set at £110 for the year 2023-24. This is still less than the fee charged at other UK managed slipways, I have to say, or I'm told. This correction does not have a material impact on the anticipated income budgets for the forthcoming year. I trust that members will be in agreement with this amendment alongside the overall schedule of fees and charges. As well as consideration by Cabinet and officers, the proposed schedule of fees and charges was carefully reviewed by the cross-party Cabinet Advisory Group and also was considered by the Overview and Scrutiny Panel at its meeting on the 17th of January 2023. In addition to optimising our fees and charges, we are also planning to invest more in the Council's property portfolio with the clear objective to increase income and Council earns to increase the income that Council earns from its property assets. Moving on to the capital programme, the Council has substantial investment programme to deliver over the next 4 years through ongoing Levelling Up Fund projects for both Margate and Ramsgate and also the Margate Town Deal. These funds provide the opportunity for significant investment in 2 of the district's towns, and the impacts on the budget are set out in the draft capital programmes for 23 to 27. Finally, the proposed increase in council tax at £7.42 per band D equivalent property represents an increase of less than 15 pence a week for each household within that band. Chairman, I've never read so much for a long, long while. I move the recommendations within the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Saunders. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Ashby. Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Saunders. Labour would like to thank the Council's finance team and the Council officers for their hard work on this year's budget. This budget is being set with the backdrop of a serious cost of living crisis. The climate emergency is constantly on our minds, and residents have concerns about what's happening in Thanet. Labour does have proposals that can address these concerns, which we'll go on to. So I'd like to thank you for your patience tonight. I'll start with a brief response to the budget and Labour's first amendment. To begin with, I would like to welcome our new Chief Executive to his new role. He isn't here tonight, but we would welcome his interim leadership during this time. There have also been other changes since last year's budget. We had Boris Johnson, who was removed by his colleagues in September. We had Liz Truss for the whole of 50 days, who resigned after crashing the markets. And now Rishi, who has been in over 100 days, but that won't last long. Even with so many Prime Ministers, some things do not seem to change. Local governments are still not getting the funding that they need. Thanet has the second highest number of homes in Kent, yet the second lowest funding from council tax. We need to stop drip feeding local government, and we need better funding mechanisms. So on to the budget. Broadly speaking, Labour thinks this budget is a positive step for Thanet, although we do think more can be done. It is positive that we are planning to use the property repair and maintenance reserve. I'm confident that members across the room will have an idea on how this should be spent, but one item that jumps out for me is to ensure the remaining boiler and winter gardens is kept going. The additional CCTV operatives is one we fully support and aligns with our resident survey, where 51% of residents said their top priority is making Thanet a good place to live was feeling safe. The addition of a new climate change coordinator role is great news and one we fully support. An additional economic development officer role is welcomed. We welcome the investment into our future vehicle and equipment replacement programme, and it's great to see the Council confirm that in writing the plan to electrify the refuse collection vehicles by 2030. Spending £2.2 million for the further provision of temporary homeless accommodation is necessary and the right thing to do, though it does highlight the housing market failure we see nationally. And we welcome the innovative idea to put £415,000 of new homes bonus money to part finance a capital scheme for homelessness accommodation. It does sound rather familiar though. I believe it is exactly what the Labour group proposed at the last budget, and yet it was voted down. Already Labour has proposed one amendment to the Council's budget, which was introducing a home energy cold buster officer. This is now being brought to the March Cabinet meeting, and I believe Councillor Saunders when he says that he'll take this option seriously when it comes to Cabinet next month. So on fees and charges, Labour made clear at fees and charges, the fees and charges working group, that we wanted additional support for our residents. This recommendation was ignored, and instead this administration seems to be stubbornly demanding we charge our residents 10% more each year to park outside their homes and in our car parks. The Times newspaper spotted that 10% increase for parking, with the newspaper article quoting the heads of roads policy at the AA saying residents could soon vote with their wheels and decide to avoid town centres and shop online. But it will not only affect our businesses, it will also mean that a Thanet resident with an annual car park season ticket will need an additional £64 more than last year in order to go about their daily life. So on to our First Amendment, and I think that gives me an additional 3 minutes.
Right, yes. Just simply mention that your amendment ends on a semicolon, so am I missing something?
It should be a full stop. Please excuse my my inaccuracy on that. Is that acceptable? Can I carry on?
Yes, I believe so. Do carry on. Yes.
Thank you. So I'll start with the First Amendment. Remove the planned increase in charges for resident and visitor permits, and this is car parking, resulting in charges being frozen at their 2022-23 level, with a corresponding reduction in forecast income managed through the Council's earmarked reserve for on-street parking. So this, if you're interested in the fees and charges, can be found at the bottom of page 8 on the spreadsheet and the top of page 9 under residents parking permits and the title residents parking areas. At fees and charges, we made clear we need to protect residents from whopping parking increases. We have been consistent by requesting that we remove the increase for resident and visitor permits for our residents. We do not believe that this will have an impact on traffic management, but it will have an impact on a bigger issue, ensuring our residents have more money in their pockets. Thank you. I move the amendment.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Yates. Councillor Everett, were you seconding? You did want to speak, didn't you?
Thank you, Chair. I will second the amendment, and I'd like to speak to it if that's all right. I'm on the record as saying that I was unhappy about the 10% increase in parking charges for this council, and I feel, therefore, the council deserves some explanation as to why I'm not proposing a wider reduction this evening. And the reason is that we have explored this issue ad nauseam with the 151 officer, and he's been very helpful in explaining the legalities around it. And we're advised that if we were to recommend a change from 10%, we would potentially open to question whether the council was setting its parking charges in line with the requirements of traffic management. Now, this seems to me to be a very unsatisfactory state of affairs, because it is for council to set the parking charges. It's not for Cabinet, it's not for officers. Nevertheless, that's where we are, and I think the responsible thing for the Labour group to do tonight is to take the advice of the 151 officer on that matter and not bring the council into potential conflict with the district auditor. So I'm unable to propose an amendment which reduces the 10% increase across the board, but I fully support what Councillor Yates has proposed. It is a small gesture to those of our residents who have to pay to park in their local area and to the visitors who they have. It is focused on our residents, it's not focused on people from outside the district, and I hope that the council will support this modest and sensible amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ever. Would anyone else like to speak on that amendment? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to respond. Well, it's come out of the blue, but then I suppose I'm looking around, Paul Robeson's not here, so I accept there's going to be a little bit of showboating this evening. I'm unaware of the impact on this, on our fees and charges, and also the impact on our earmarked reserves. So I can't comment. What I will say is that, yes, I have made it quite clear that I wish, and we've only got a very short time, but I've put a lot of input into the new parking strategy, and I've made it absolutely clear that whatever comes out of the new parking strategy, and I'm afraid I won't be here to see it come to fruition, it needs to be on the side of our residents, and resident parking and the permits are part of that strategy. I want to get to a situation where our residents are not penalised for parking, that they are subsidised by the visitors to the area, and we're working on the strategy. We believe that we had a scheme. We've included additional CCTV cameras, which are all part of our future plans for coming up with a parking strategy that is fair to our residents and gives them the benefit of, yes, being able to park outside their house. And with the resident parking permits, I'd like to get to a situation where they could actually park outside of their house if their houses are in the parking zones, rather than have the opportunity of parking there if a space is available, or driving around and finding a space within their zone, and if not, having to pay. That is totally wrong. I agree with everything said, but I really can't accept this amendment until I know exactly what the cost implications are. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Saunders. Councillor Yates, you have a point of order.
I was just wondering whether the Section 151 officer might be able to confirm what I believe is that it's a reduction in fees and charges of £6,000.
I can ask the Section 151 officer if he would like to comment or able to comment at this point.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so on-street parking operates through a slightly different arrangement to off-street parking. So any income that we collect from on-street goes through an earmarked reserve that is reserved just for those purposes. We collect about £50,000 a year from residence permit and £14,000 from visitors permits. So by freezing them, we'd forego about £6,000 in additional income that would be allocated to the decrim reserve. This is a manageable amount, considered the overall sums of money that are allocated to the decrim reserve from overall on-street car parking, if members wish to consider it.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Any other speakers to the amendment? Councillor Saunders, you're back.
Chairman, thank you, Chris, 151 officer. As we're only speaking about a comparatively small amount, I'm quite happy to accept this amendment. It would have been nice to know in advance. We could have saved the grandstanding.
Well, yes. Notwithstanding, nevertheless, it would seem that this is meeting with some approval. Are there any other speakers on this amendment? Councillor Austin, yes, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on Councillor Saunders' comments. Sorry, I want to pick up on Councillor Saunders' comments about the parking review, because we did ask for various changes at the fees and charges CAG, and I think it came up again at overview and scrutiny, and we were told the parking review wasn't happening yet, it's not happening, everything will have to wait for that. But from what Councillor Saunders is saying now, it sounded like it was underway, and it would be useful to know where we're at with that and what stakeholder engagement we're doing, etc., because obviously that feeds into this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Councillor Saunders, are you able to respond to that?
I'm indeed. It's not actually underway. The lead officer has confirmed to me, and it's been put in writing, that we're expecting it in June. It's definitely underway, and the last information I had was that we are now in a position to actually go out to procurement. Once that's done, and once we make a decision on who we want to manage this and prepare the report for us, then we will go to the various stakeholders. I've made that absolutely clear that everyone needs to have an input, because it's an even more difficult subject than this budget, quite honestly. But it's important that we get it through, because it will include provision for electric vehicles, etc. So it's important on many fronts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. You're on the ball, aren't you, there? Any other speakers to the amendment? I don't see anybody else. Anyone? Now, even as an amendment, we need to vote for this as a recorded vote. So once again, I'll call on the monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll start with in the alphabetical order, and you're voting for or against or abstention. Councillor Aubin. For. Councillor Ashby.
For.
Councillor Austin. For. Councillor Bailey. For. Councillor Bambridge. Councillor Jill Bayford. For. Councillor Robert Bayford. For. Councillor Boyd? Okay. Councillor Braidwood? Councillor Coleman-Cook? Councillor Crittenden? Councillor Curry? Councillor Dexter? Councillor Duckworth? Councillor Everett? Councillor Fellows? Councillor Garner? Councillor Hart? Councillor Hopkinson? Councillor Huxley? Councillor Keane? Councillor Cupp? Councillor Lace? Councillor Patmore? Councillor Paul Moore? Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie? Councillor Ovenden? Councillor Parson? Councillor Linda Piper? Councillor Stuart Piper, you abstaining. Thank you. Councillor Pugh, apologies for pronouncing your name incorrectly earlier.
I would just like to put on the record, Chair, that's not the worst attempt at my surname that I have ever heard. I'm not going to give members the other examples, but thank you, Samira. I'm for this.
It's the first time I was doing it, so apologies. Could you confirm your vote? For. Okay.
For.
Councillor Rattigan? Councillor Rowe? Councillor Rogers? Councillor Rosinski? Councillor David Saunders?
For.
Councillor Maeve Saunders? Councillor Savage?
For.
Councillor Scobie? Councillor Scott? Councillor Shonk? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Shrub? Councillor Smith? Councillor Tomlinson? Councillor Towning? Councillor Wallin? Councillor Whitehead? Councillor Ving? Abstain. Councillor Wright? And finally, Councillor Yates. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. That's agreed. We return to the substantive motion. I have Councillor Aubin.
So I'd like to make an amendment, Chair, please. Thank you. I can assure Councillor Saunders I've got no cane, no hat to wear, so I won't be showboating, Chair. This is an important item, and I have no wish to do that at all. So the amendment I'm proposing is as follows. Remove £85,000 growth from the estates budget for ongoing staffing resources to be replaced by £170,000 allocation from the risk reserve to provide temporary staffing resources in the estates budget over 2 years. The £85,000 saved being allocated to the street cleansing budget to provide additional resources for the creation of 3 full-time equivalent environmental operative roles within the base budget. And I do this, Chair, by saying that the second most important thing that our residents have told us in the resident survey is they want cleaner streets, Chair. And by providing at least 3 that we can get out of this budget in a safe and good way, that will show that this council is actually listening to our residents. And I would, whilst I have no way of telling our officers how these should be used, but I would say, Chair, that they should be within the residential areas and that our residents can actually see that we're listening and that's taking place. I so move, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. I take that amendment. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Everett. Do you wish to speak? Yes.
Yes, this amendment is designed to focus the budget more closely on the priorities of our residents, and I don't think there can be any member of this council who is not aware that one of the biggest priorities of our residents is litter on our streets. It is the single biggest issue that you ever encounter on the doorstep, and quite honestly it's the single biggest issue you encounter as you walk around Thanet. And I think this modest proposal, and it is a modest proposal, can do nothing detrimental in terms of that issue. We are very keen to support the expansion of the estates budget, and we would not wish to do anything which made it more difficult for estates to bring in more income for the council, which I know is the purpose of the growth in the budget proposal. And I just want to read to you, with his permission, what the 151 officer said about this proposal, and clearly he's not expressing an opinion about whether he's in favour of it or not, but he did say the reallocation of resources here is a sensible and financially feasible proposal. That being the case, members, we have an opportunity to show our residents that we understand their main concern is street cleaning. And I think the opportunity will be missed if we focus on back office development at the expense of street cleaning. We can have both, and we will get it if we vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett, and that's proposed and seconded. Do I have any other speakers? We've got Councillor Bayford.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Orban. I agree with you absolutely. Clean streets are a great priority, and this administration takes that very seriously. And to that end, I can tell Council that we're currently undertaking a review of cleansing services. What we believe is that we can improve the service without extra budget. That's what we hope to do. So we're looking at changing the work patterns of people. We're looking to trial electric walk-behind vehicles, and something that, that's the lovely name of the vacuum glutton. I'm told that if we actually do find these trials are successful and actually go for this machinery, it will make a huge impact on the cleanliness of our streets. So I personally think that it's better that we try and improve the service within the budget that we've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayford. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Chair. My mind takes me back to a time when I think, Councillor Orban, you were in Cabinet, and there was an introduction of, I believe, 10 street cleaning operatives. Unfortunately, the Labour administration at that time didn't manage to actually fill those roles, and when we resumed control of the council the following year, we did maintain those positions within it. So the whole point of the estates team and the reason for that we put the amount in there to grow this team, not taking it out of reserves but to take it out from the general fund is the fact that we need as a council to earn our way, to earn our living. And if we get this right, and with this proposal and this platform, then we will be able to go forward on a sustainable basis and be able to recruit year on year more allocation to the various resources that we need to provide the services to the residents that we fall short on in some of the areas. But I do feel that this actually is the right way forward, and I'm afraid that I cannot support your proposal in this case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Ashby. And I think I've got an indication. Where's it? Yes, Councillor Wing. I've temporarily forgot your name, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. You've got a birthday coming, so you're otherwise distracted. I'm conflicted. I mean, it would have been nice for us to have been aware of this motion beforehand, because I represent a ward, and had more discussion about the implications of it. I sit in a ward that desperately wants its market back, and that's a high need within my ward, Central Harbour, and that issue sits within the estates team. But I'm also personally, and as a ward councillor, really concerned about the rubbish and litter on our seats, so much so that I'm often out picking the litter up. So I find I'm conflicted. I want to support the motion, but I also don't want to see the estates team impacted, and perhaps we have to wait even longer for our market to return, because the estates team are quite clearly too much to do and not enough people. So is there any indication that anybody can give me about the loss of that finance to the estates team and what it means there?
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wing. I mean, at this point, yes, I suppose, are you able to give some clarification, one by one?
I'm happy to, but I can see that Councillor Yates is happy to respond on this. So,
Councillor Yates, what I would mention just briefly, everyone, is that I'm still recovering from an operation on my right eye. So, seriously, if I don't see you, bear with me. Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Chair. Just speaking to the financing of this, so this will be financed, instead of from the general fund budget, it'll be financed from our reserves. So it'll be using our reserves to fund these 3 posts, to fund the estates team, sorry. So there's no reduction in staffing, it's just coming from reserves rather than coming from the general fund budget. Thank you.
We have a further clarification from the 151 officer.
I just wanted to add a little bit more context in terms of the advice provided here. When looking at using our reserves, it's typically that we would use these for temporary funding, which is why this is a feasible thing to do, because these are time-limited posts that we're looking at within the estates team. We wouldn't want to be using reserves for an ongoing pressure, so usually when we're looking at setting the budgets, we don't want to use reserves on an ongoing basis, because you can only be using them once. However, there's a significant backlog in the estates team, and we think that some of those resources are only needed for a time-limited period of time until that backlog is cleared. So it is feasible to use the reserves for that 2-year period to address that situation and switch the funding that was going to be put into the base budget instead and allocate that to street cleansing. That is a feasible and sustainable budget amendment if members wish to consider it.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Roth, did you indicate? You did.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I agree. Growth is a big part of any finance in any stage, but I think the street cleaning is a much important thing to the resident of Thanet. Anyone you speak to, they say, I pay tax, why my rubbish? Simple things, you cannot take my rubbish away. What council can do? What you cannot clean outside my house, you cannot clean the street. I think I support this amendment because that is what residents pay for and that's what residents want. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roth. If there are no more speakers, can we... Councillor Saunders, did you want to come back in?
Well, as you invited me, I didn't put my hand up. Obviously, again, I would have liked to have had this before me, before this meeting, and the advice that we've received from the 151 officer. What I would say is that, as members know, I am frequently contacted with regards to local organisations and our tenants with regards to rent reviews, leases, etc., etc. And our plans that we've been discussing at the Star Chambers would mean that the resource would be put into the Estates Department so that we can tackle this issue. And this issue is fundamental to our revenue stream. I accept what's being told and what's being said, and I just wonder if I was to agree to this amendment, when would these street cleaners start? Because I do know that we've got people for the Estates Department sitting on the standing blocks as we speak this evening, and I'm not aware that we've got people who want to come and sweep our streets immediately available. It's something that can be looked at in the future, but as far as this budget's concerned, I cannot support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Saunders. Back to you, Councillor Orban.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to make one point of clarification, Chair. Obviously, this budget doesn't start until after April. Thank you. Huh? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Just before we move to the vote, Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, but for my own also, I'm pretty certain that what's being proposed isn't an either-or option. It's simply a movement of finances to enable both.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I move to the monitoring officer for a recorded vote? Councillor Ashby, just quickly, if you want to come back in.
This isn't just a movement. I mean, we are being asked to take money out of reserves. Our reserves are already very low in comparison with other councils, and we are of the mind that we don't want to actually erode any further our already low reserves on making something that is just a quick short fix. The whole budget is based on future planning. So we want to become more self-sufficient if we get the estates team right and we do what we're supposed to do and get our yield up from a very low yield that we have at the moment, which is under 3%, to an acceptable level of about 8%. We can afford 10 new street cleaners every year, next year, the following year and the following year. But if we don't invest in it now, then we will be missing this opportunity. So I'm afraid it is not just a paper exercise. We do not, as a Conservative administration, believe that we should go raid our reserves just to actually make this, what shall I say, this is a very highly contentious issue, and I come back to Councillor Bayford's comment, whereby we should be looking at maybe restructuring our existing resources to provide extra cover on the street cleaning. But it is essential, and we debated this long and hard, Chair, to actually look at how we can actually grow. The estates and the revenue that we earn from our estates is vital to this council, and if we do not support it, this department has been neglected year on year on year, and that is why we're in the state that we are at the moment. So I'm afraid, Chair, again, we cannot support this as an administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. The thing about Councillor Whitehead, I know you do want to come back in. I mean, we've had quite a good clarification from Councillor Ashby on this.
No, I asked for clarification
just
from
briefly.
Section 151. So, to my understanding, it's not an either-or situation. We are not swapping from funding from the states to another area. We are simply funding an extra from reserves, and I would like clarity on that from the Section 151, please.
Well, look, just briefly, I'll call the 151 officer back, but I think after that we will move to the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the leader has accurately addressed the issue in the fact that, as you say, Councillor Whitehead, this is to do both of these, which would be possible. That's not a binary choice between one or the other, but to do both, you would need to be taking £85,000 out of the risk reserve over the next 2 years, so that's 170,000 from it. So that's what members need to consider.
Thank you.
Yes, one more clarification. Yes, Councillor Everett.
Could I ask the 151 officer just to give us a ballpark figure for how much this budget takes out of reserves overall?
Yes, Councillor Everett, the 151 officer will respond.
You'll note that there are various different movements across different reserve items. To hand, I'd need to just refer to the report to get the net position, if you can bear with me. But there are a variety of different reserves taken from there that are set out within the report at section... My apologies.
He's good, you know, but he is going through all of this.
Section 7 sets out our overall reserve levels, well, at the moment, and then there is further detail in the report setting out all the different reserve movements that are contained within the report. Sorry, again, just trying to refer to the correct section. Yeah, if I could come back to you on that. Apologies.
Yeah, he's good,
section.
but it's out of the blue, Councillor Everett, and a little difficult. He will get back to you on that.
The point I'm making is that there is a substantial withdrawal from reserves in this budget. So the Conservative position that it's not a good idea to draw down reserves, particularly in support of something which is revenue earning, and which we all agree is revenue earning is a good idea, isn't really an argument against it. Thank you.
Right, look, thank you, Councillor Everett. We're going to move to the vote now. Enough has been said. We have had clarification. Can I ask the monitoring officer to undertake a recorded vote once again?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Again, I'll start with the alphabetical order. Councillor Alban, you vote for. Okay. Councillor Ashby. Councillor Austin. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bambridge. Councillor Jill Bayford. Councillor Robert Bayford. And Councillor Boyd, you'll abstain. Okay. Councillor Braidwood. Braidwood. Against. Okay. Councillor Coleman Cook.
Against.
Councillor Crittenden. Was that 4? Thank you. Councillor Curry?
4.
Councillor Dexter? Councillor Duckworth?
4.
Councillor Everett?
4.
Councillor Fellows? Councillor Garner?
4.
Councillor Hart?
Against.
Councillor Hopkinson?
4.
Councillor Huxley?
4.
Councillor Keane?
4.
Councillor Cupp?
Against.
Councillor Lays? Councillor Pat Moore?
4.
Councillor Paul Moore?
Against.
Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie? 4. Councillor Ovenden? 4. Councillor Parson?
Against.
Councillor Linda Piper?
Against.
And Councillor Stuart Piper, you'll abstain. Thank you. Councillor Pugh?
Against.
I got you right this time. Councillor Rattigan?
Against.
Councillor Rofe?
4.
Councillor Rogers? Sorry, didn't hear that? Against. And Councillor Rostigan? Against, sorry. Lost my count, sorry. Councillor David Saunders? Sorry.
Against.
Councillor Maeve Saunders? Councillor Savage?
Against.
Councillor Scobie?
4.
4. Councillor Scott?
Against.
Councillor Shonk?
Against.
Councillor Shrub?
Against.
Councillor Smith?
4.
Councillor Tomlinson? Against. Councillor Towning?
Against.
Councillor Vollin?
Against.
Councillor Whitehead?
4.
Councillor Ving?
4. Sorry.
Councillor Wright?
Against.
Councillor Yates. Just give us 2 minutes.
She does. Yeah. She hasn't formally declared an interest. I know. It's because Carrie submitted it online.
Right, the result is there's 24 for the amendments, 28 against and 2 abstentions. So the motion is lost.
Thank you very much indeed, Monitoring Officer. So that has fallen. Back to the substantive agenda item. Therefore, Councillor Duckworth.
I'd like to move a third amendment. When Labour proposed climate emergency in 2019, we didn't do it to win political points. We did it to follow the science and address the climate emissions locally. I think I speak for everyone when I say the tree planting officer we have is excellent, and it's been brilliant to watch over 1,000 trees planted locally with schools, community groups and residents invited to get their spade out. The important thing with the tree planting is to get newly planted trees watered for 3 years following planting. With our summers getting hotter, we need to ensure that the trees we just planted stay alive. Otherwise, we've just spent time and energy digging a hole, only to fill it in again a few years later. Labour, therefore, propose that we remove £25,000 growth for seaweed removal from the budget and, in view of the consensus that this item is needed, ask Cabinet to consider a different way to fund it at its March meeting. The £25,000 saved to be allocated to a new permanent role of tree planting and biodiversity gain officer.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Duckworth. I would point out again, I know I'm seeing pedantic, but you end again on a semicolon. Am I missing anything? Do I have a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Everett. Who wants to speak to this? Councillor Ash.
Thank you, Chair. If we're following the same lines about it being important to residents about street cleaning, I receive a lot more emails about seaweed than I ever do about street cleaning. This is an ongoing issue. This affects not only our residents, but it also affects our tourism industry dramatically. I've long campaigned for the clearance of seaweed, but it is a natural phenomenon that happens many years that I've been living in this coast. So I'm afraid that we felt that it is very important that we actually provide funds for this, and the officers have looked long and hard about how to actually maximise the efficiency of this clearing. So again, Chair, I'm afraid I feel that this is an unreasonable proposal coming from the budget. I'm also somewhat, I was under the understanding that we actually had found a way of funding the tree officer, so it would be unnecessary to actually withdraw this 25k. But I would also remind officers, I would also remind members that actually Councillor Cupp, myself and Charlie Dench, my PA, spent a week of our summer going out with the council bowsers watering the trees. So maybe there, other contributions could be received from members. I know that members do help with the planting, but a tree is for life, not just for the planting and the photographers and the press. So, Chair, I'm afraid I will not be supporting this, and obviously my members can decide whether they are or not.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Ashby. Councillor Everett.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I actually agree with Councillor Ashby that the removal of seaweed is a priority for residents. Obviously, in particular areas of the district, not across the district, but in particular areas, it is a problem, and the council needs to do the job properly. But what we're proposing here, again, is to that the Cabinet goes away and finds another place to find that money. It's a relatively small sum of money. In this amendment, it's £25,000. When you look at the revenue budget, which I think is 19.6 million, and you look at the council's revenue streams, it's not really that difficult to find 20,000. And I think what we should say, what is important, and what is important, I think, to all of our residents, is the natural environment, and it is our commitment to biodiversity gain and to tree planting. I think that's a common cause across this council. And what I'd like to say is, whilst it's true that there may be another temporary stopgap way of funding a post, possibly if we'd had the previous incumbent on a full-time contract, they wouldn't have gone off and got a job somewhere else. I can't speculate about that, and it'd be unreasonable to do so. But I think this council needs to offer its employees full-time positions, permanent positions, so that they can stay here, build up experience, build up knowledge, and deliver work for us, and hopefully progress through this council structure. I think this is an important statement that this council would make by spending a relatively small sum of money to create a new post and make a commitment to the natural environment, which I think we all share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. It's Councillor Pugh, isn't it?
Yes, not Councillor Pugh, Chair. Thank you. Well done. Your hearing is certainly better than your sight at the moment, so well done. I thank you, Councillor Duckworth, for your amendment that you've put forward, and I'd like to reiterate, I think, what the leader has said, particularly about seaweed. It is a problem across our coast, and it is really important. I don't think that any budget should be removed from that allocation. But what I would say is that, particularly as this talks about a permanent role for tree planting and biodiversity gain officer, the Labour group are distributing countless pages with, this one's got not even 5 lines of text on it. If we're talking about being a bit more responsible, I don't know, this is the 3rd amendment they've put forward. I don't know how many there are, but, maybe if they're all on the same page, double-sided, we might save a few trees. But I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We've introduced some levity. I've got Councillor Cupp first, if that's all right, Leader.
Right. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say from a councillor from Birchington, and I'm sure many of the councillors that are representing coastal wards see the damage that happens many a time when the seaweed comes in, the smell that happens, and I actually think this is incredibly important, and it is something that I know a lot of residents will be backing, and it's something that residents have asked us to do many a time during the summer period, and that is why I think it's so important that it's in here. And I would just say that these amendments that are coming through really does seem like that the Labour Party are just getting desperate of what amendments they can put in, and they're just trying to come up with anything that doesn't really make any sense. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
You would
Councillor
say that,
Cupp.
wouldn't you?
Yes, well, even nevertheless. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about this, because I too, like the leader, thought there was funding for the tree officer post, and I wasn't sure about the status of that. I'm looking at correspondence. We too had some suggestions about some horticulture posts and some enforcement posts, which we've been in discussion with the 151 officer about, and decided not to bring in an amendment on. And with regard to the horticulture, I understood that we do have extension funding for the tree planting post, and that the difficulty, as I understood it from what the climate change officer told us at the members briefing on Monday, was finding locations actually where we could be doing the tree planting, and that there had to be a discussion about that with Kent County Council before we could progress. I'm very keen to see every post that we possibly can made permanent and full-time, but I'm not quite clear about where this sits. Also, I understand from correspondence with the 151 officer that the biodiversity role, which is still vacant, is funded in the base budget. And I'd just like some confirmation of that and how this is going to make a difference to all of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Since there's a point of clarification, I shall ask the leader back.
Sorry, I think Councillor Duckworth had a hand up as before me.
Were you there before? I'm sorry about that. Councillor Duckworth, did you want to come in then? You have already spoken, by the way. So really... It's a point of order, is it? Point of order.
I'll be very brief. Yeah, Councillor Austin, it's not so much about tree planting as making sure that the trees already planted are watered. So it's not about where we can plant trees so much as the ones that are already there. We need to make sure that they don't...
Temporary.
We want to make it permanent.
Yes, we're not backwards and forward. Can I just remind members that it is good practice to stand when addressing the chamber. I'm not mentioning anybody in particular, but just as an overall observation, it's good form. Councillor Ashby, on a point of clarification, did you want to come back in briefly?
Thank you, Chair. I believe... oh, sorry. If I can just... Screen's gone. I could be corrected on this, but Anna, the excellent tree officer that we have, I believe the role was funded out of a fund that was the Queen's Canopy Fund. The Queen's... and it was known at that time, obviously, that the cost of the trees, the planting, and the first year of maintenance was covered in this. So we actually knew it at that time. So I appreciate that it was a temporary post, but that was all part of the bid. And I know quite a lot about tree bids going back over the years, but we won't go into that. I understand, I have been advised that we are still funding the role, and we will seek further funding. There are funds coming out all the time from the government initiatives and from the Forestry Commission. There are probably about 5 or 6 different schemes running at any one time that we can actually apply for funding. So I actually think we're actually arguing about something that we don't need to be arguing about here, because it is funded. Anna, or if Anna does leave the role, then there will be funding for an officer to come in and cover this. So, and I'm sure again that if we all put our minds to it, then we can seek the funding that we need. But I will remind all members that going back to when we first started planting trees, we have to have in mind that these trees need to be looked after for 60, 70, 80 years. So, you know, we have to plan for long after we've gone. So we have to be mindful of bids when we go in for them, that we have to put in a maintenance tail programme in place. Because this council cannot be responsible. If we plant 1 million trees in Thanet, this council will not be able to support a long-term maintenance plan. So we have to put that in place when we've gone past the paparazzi and the picture taking of tree planting. Thank you, Chair. But hopefully this now answers the question and we can move on to the vote. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Leader. I mean, I asked the Leader back in because it was an important point of clarification. We also need to bear in mind it isn't good form to mention officers by name. So in future, let's not do that. Councillor Garner, I believe you indicated, did you? No? Oh, I thought you did. My dodgy eye again. At least I gave you the chance. Right, I think we'll move to the vote. Once again, I call upon the monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm just curious, is this really an amendment? This is asking us to look at something in a March meeting. Is it actually an amendment to this budget?
I've accepted it as an amendment.
That's not the question, Chairman.
Chair, if I can be of assistance, the amendments were all drafted with the support of our senior officers. So, I mean, it's the senior officer who you're questioning.
All right. We've had a question and a clarification, and I'm also happy it was an amendment. We will move on to the vote. Thank you, Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's the amendment number 3, and in the alphabetical order. Councillor Alban. For. Councillor Ashby.
Against.
Councillor Austin. Abstain. Councillor Bailey. Abstain. Councillor Bambridge. Against. Councillor Jill Bayford. Against. Councillor Robert Bayford. Sorry. Councillor Boyd. Councillor Batewood. Councillor Coleman-Cook.
Against.
Councillor Crittenden. Councillor Curry. Councillor Dexter. Councillor Duckworth. Councillor Everett. Councillor Fellows. Councillor Garner. Councillor Hart.
Against.
Councillor Hopkinson. Councillor Huxley. Councillor Keane. Councillor Cupp. Councillor Lays. Councillor Patmore. Councillor Paul Moore. Councillor Amory Nixie. Councillor Ovenden. Councillor Parsons. Councillor Linda Piper. Councillor Stuart Piper. Abstain. Thank you. Councillor Pugh. Councillor Rattigan. Abstain. Councillor Rofe. Councillor Rogers. Councillor Rosinski. Against. Councillor David Saunders. Councillor Maeve Saunders. Councillor Savage.
Against.
Councillor Scobie. Councillor Scott. Sorry, I didn't hear that? Against. Thank you. Councillor Shonk. Councillor Shrub. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tomlinson. Councillor Towning. Councillor Wallin. Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Wing. Councillor Wright. And finally, Councillor Yates. Okay, if you just give me 2 minutes to count.
Councillor Everett, did you want to come in on something? Of course, yes.
Chair.
Councillor Ozeki?
Yeah, just a quick question. It's all very well Labour handing out a few leaflets to people so they can see the motion. What about the rest of us? Because if we can't see it, why should we even debate it?
Well, the way it works is that the proposal is made, it is read out, it is discussed and debated, and it's on that basis that we make a decision. However, if any help, I've been reliably informed this is the last amendment of the evening.
Okay, before you celebrate, do you want to hear the result for the third amendment?
Are you going to read that out?
Yeah. 16 for, 6 abstention and 28 against. So it's left.
So that has fallen. Back to the substantive motion, and Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. I want to add my thanks to Cabinet members and officers for their work on the budget, and I know it's a long and arduous process. I'm sorry that we weren't given the opportunity to be more involved before Christmas, but that's water under the bridge now. And I'd like to thank in particular Mr Blundell and others for their advice on Labour's proposed amendments tonight. We are not opposing this budget, but we think it can be improved, and therefore I wish to move an amendment. And this amendment would remove £20,000 growth for seaweed removal, and in view of the consensus that this item is needed, ask Cabinet to find a different way to fund it at its March meeting, and reallocate the £20,000 funding to remove the planned decrease in charges at the Royal Harbour car park in Ramsgate in acknowledgement of the long-term lack of working lifts and ongoing environmental issues there. In terms of revenue, Royal Harbour car park is a success story. I'm advised that in 2021-22 it generated £235,000, which was the highest of any council car park. And yet for the town it is an embarrassment and has been for a number of years. Under the Labour administration in 2021, 332,000 was allocated from the decriminalisation fund to repair the lifts, but COVID meant they could not be used, and therefore it wasn't done. In the summer of 2021, the present administration took over and the lifts have been boarded up ever since. This is dangerous. It means pedestrians with limited mobility, including parents with prams, have to use the vehicle ramps to change floors, which is a basic failing of health and safety of which this council should be ashamed. These boarded up lifts do nothing to enhance the lobby areas. The fire doors are in poor repair, there is pooling of water after it rains, and there are frequent problems with cleanliness and antisocial behaviour. It is welcome that there is money in the capital programme for new fire doors and concrete works, and that the council has made a £3 million provision to buy the car park in 2025-26. I'm told that the money is still sitting there in reserves to fix the lifts, but the long delay would suggest that it hasn't been a priority for this administration. I conclude that this car park, in its present state, does not merit a 10% increase. It has deteriorated and it offers worse facilities, and the pricing should reflect that. The 151 officer has shared his concerns with us that changes to the proposed charges could be deemed to imply that they were not originally put forward based on traffic management, and as such attract the attention of the council's auditor. But it is for council to set these charges, not cabinet, and not with respect the auditor or officers. This car park has plenty of spare capacity on its upper floors at all times. It's really not credible that freezing charges there will have a material effect on traffic flow. Financially, the effect of a freeze on the council's revenue income is not significant. What freezing charges would do is publicly acknowledge to the town and the people that use Royal Harbour that the state of this car park is simply not good enough and that the council recognises that it must do better. I move the amendment.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. Once again, I know it's a bit pedantic, you end on a semicolon. Am I missing anything? No. Right, okay. Have you got a seconder? Councillor Alban, who wishes to speak? No speak. Councillor Alban's going to speak, yes. Oh, was it Councillor Austin? Sorry, Councillor, you were first.
Sorry, my arm
you were first.
Out there, Chair.
Right, well, I'll come back to you, Councillor Alban. Councillor Austin.
Councillor Alban's arm is considerably longer than mine, I think. As one of the ward councillors for the ward in which the Royal Harbour car park sits, I am delighted at this proposal and thoroughly support it. The Royal Harbour car park is a disgrace and an embarrassment and a serious safety problem. We need to be doing something about that as a matter of urgency, but in the meanwhile, I support the idea that it certainly does not warrant any increase in charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Councillor Alban, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just very briefly, Chair, in that I think the two speakers so far have put it very succinctly. It is an absolute disgrace, Chair, and something needs to be done. I know it's difficult that we're coming up to a gap in the lease on it. The council doesn't own it; it leases it, and as was said earlier, you know. When I was a cabinet member, we got this £300,000 to be put in to repair the lifts, and also knowing that there's what's known as concrete cancer in part of it, and that does need to be dealt with. And also, my understanding is, and I may be put right on this, but it is a repairing lease, Chair. So if the council decided not to continue with the lease, we'd have to put it back into the state as when we got it, and it's certainly not in the state as when we got it, Chair. So I would hope that members would support this amendment. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Councillor Alban. Is anybody going to reply to that? Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Chair. I can remember a while back looking at the same issue with this. I'm surprised that Councillor Everett thinks it was a success story. I actually disagree with that. I don't believe this car park has ever made any money. And I would suggest that if we were to take it back under the ownership of Thanet District Council, and by raising sufficient parking fees for it, then money could be invested back into it, and it could be a revenue generated for the council overall. So £20,000, if the car park is a state that everyone says it's in, £20,000 is not even going to pay for a deep clean. So I think we're just attacking the seaweed removal because a lot of the Conservative wards are actually coastal based but the Labour wards aren't? I don't know. I wouldn't like to suggest that. But I would say that this needs to come under the parking review plan, which will be judged across the whole parking facilities within Thanet, both on street and off street, and hopefully a correct and in-depth review of our parking will result in a balanced parking fee across the island, and where we can actually examine, hopefully with the levelling up money and all the good things that are happening in Ramsgate, will bring lots of revenue from visitors coming into the car park that can be actually upgraded when it has started to earn its living. I think that is the way forward for this council. We can't just keep throwing money at things. We have to make the assets earn their living, earn their keep, and then we can reinvest back into our estates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby.
Point of order, Chair.
Much as I'd like to bring you... Is a point of order, is it?
Point of order, Chair.
Right.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to remind the leader on this point of order that Ramsgate is actually located on the sea, Chair. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Councillor Saunders, moving swiftly on. Councillor Saunders.
I'll be very swift, Chairman. I support, or I could support, the proposal that we don't increase the fees and charges within that particular car park. But the amendment is, in my opinion, is wrongly worded because I cannot support taking more money out of the seaweed removal growth plan. I agree that that car park is an architectural disaster. Whoever designed the lower level with the underpass walkway to Wilco's needs absolutely shooting. The lifts, I know it was a good idea at the time, but it needs better lighting, and it's always been the same. I can remember it when it was first opened, 50 years ago, and it's always been an area that, shall we say, needs addressing with regards to lighting, etc. So, although I would support a proposal within the parking strategy that those fees are maintained at their current level, what I can't do is support this amendment the way it's worded, because I will not support the £20,000 removal from the seaweed removal provision that we have in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. But just in support of the architectural profession, it's possible the car park was not designed by an architect. Councillor Wing.
Yes, Ward Councillor on the coast, obviously, in regular sea dipper on both the Western Undercliff and the main sands, and we do in fact have seaweed.
Councillor Wing. Thank you very much. Councillor Keane.
Thank you very much. I think we're missing a really important point here. The problem with the car park is that it is a health and safety issue. It's an immediate issue that needs resolving. It disadvantages disabled people, people with young families, and that is why this is such an important amendment that I really hope people will support, because otherwise we are leaving part of our population ill-served. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keane. Councillor Huxley.
Thanks, Chair. Just say it is a disgrace to the car park. Is the leader happy with that? Has she actually been there recently? If we've got £300,000 in the reserves that Councillor Albon actually put aside for it 2 years ago, why haven't we done the lifts? You know, I've had people come up to me when I parked in the car park with a wheelchair user. They've driven up to the second floor and they can't get down the stairs, or, you know, they take their life in their hands going down to the next level. It's not good enough. Why aren't those lifts working now? Why haven't they been replaced? Is the leader happy with that? She should come with us and the Central Harbour Council and have a look at it, because it's dirty, it's disgusting, it needs a repaint for a start. What does she think about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Huxley. The leader has already spoken on this, so unless it's clarification, which it is it?
Chair, I was named and asked the question, so I'd appreciate the right to respond.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a clarification as well, won't it?
Actually, yes, I do visit the car park quite often, and every time I go to Ramsgate, which is quite frequently, at least once a fortnight, if not once a week, I do park in the car park. And I will, yes, it is a car park that is very typical of car parks across the country that are actually in bad state. But yes, there was a deep clean, I believe. I did walk around with the ward councillors at the time when we were discussing the safety issues of going across to the Wilco through the underpass there. I agree with you, it is a disgusting car park, but I fail to see how the 20,000 is going to help things. What we need is a sustainable future for that car park, and I feel that if we actually build this right within the car park strategy, that we're just tinkering with the edges doing this. So yes, I do park in there. I do come to Ramsgate quite often, actually. You will find me around in Ramsgate. In fact, I probably go to Ramsgate more than I do my own ward. But apart from living there and walking there. But no, the point is that we need to try and make a sustainable future for our assets, and this is why we've got to look at this. Just taking £20 out of the seaweed removal is not going to assist this. 20,000. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Councillor Ashby. What I shall call upon Councillor Whitehead now, but I think the issue has been dealt with adequately. So if I can call on the last speaker as Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I would, oddly enough, like to speak in support of the leader's mention of a sustainable future. It was earlier argued that the income from the car park is necessary in order to sustain the future of the car park. But thinking in terms of how tourism works here, the state of the car park currently is not going to invite people to return again. I think it's more likely to damage our reputation as a tourist area. So in relation to the sustainable future of tourism here, I think it is something that has to be acted upon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitehead. Can we move to the vote now, please, Monitoring Officer? Is it a point of order, Councillor Huxley?
Well, I don't know, just the leader didn't answer my question about the lifts. If there's
No, it has to be a point of order because you've already spoken.
Yeah, but that's something that she hasn't actually answered. The lifts, well, there is money for the lifts and they haven't been replaced. Why not?
We're moving to the vote now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Right, amendment number 4. For, against or abstention. Councillor Alban. For. Councillor Ashby.
Against.
Councillor Austin. For. Councillor Bailey. Against. Councillor Bambridge. Against. Councillor Jill Bayford. Against. Councillor Robert Bayford. Against. Councillor Boyd, abstain, yeah, thank you. Councillor Braidwood. Against. Councillor Coleman-Cook.
Against.
Councillor Crittenden. Councillor Curry. For. Councillor Dexter.
Against.
Councillor Duckworth. For. Councillor Everett.
For.
Councillor Fellows. Councillor Garner.
For.
Councillor Hart.
Against.
Councillor Hopkinson.
For.
Councillor Huxley. Councillor Keane. For. Councillor Cupp.
Against.
Councillor Lace. Councillor Patmore. For. Councillor Paulmore.
Against.
Councillor Amory Nixie. For. Councillor Ovenden.
For.
Councillor Parson.
Against.
Councillor Linda Piper. And Councillor Stewart, you will remain abstention. Councillor Potts? No, sorry. Councillor Pugh?
Against.
Councillor Rattigan?
Against.
Councillor Rofe?
For.
Councillor Rogers? Councillor Exactly, yeah. Councillor David Saunders. Councillor Maeve Saunders. Councillor Savage.
Against.
Councillor Scobie. Councillor Scott. Councillor Shonk. Councillor Shrub. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tomlinson. Against. Councillor Towning. Councillor Volin. Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Ving. Councillor Wright. And Councillor Yates. 4. Just give me 2 minutes. Okay, the vote is 19 in favour, 2 abstain and 29 against. So it's lost.
Thank you very much. That has fallen. We're back to the substantive motion again. Any speakers? Councillor Austin. No, Councillor White. Who is in first? Councillor Austin. I take alphabetical order. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to thank the 151 officer and his team for all their help and information during the process of discussing this. We came up with a series of ideas, some of which interestingly mirrored some of what the Labour group has put forward, and in the end decided not to bring any proposals to this meeting. But we are broadly very supportive of the budget, supportive of the priorities that have been identified. However, the area that we are uncertain about and very worried about is the area of borrowing and capital spend on Ramsgate Port, because we don't feel that we have, as ward councillors, sufficient information to support that. We have asked repeatedly for more information. The finance team have been very helpful in sending us some project initiation documents for some of the capital projects, but they were sketchy to say the least. The leader has just said we can't keep throwing money at things, and I'm afraid we feel that there's a bit of that with this. Councillor Wing, I'm sure, will follow this up in more detail, but we are very concerned about that aspect of the budget, and as such I think the Ramsgate Green councillors will probably be abstaining, because we don't feel that we can support that part in its present form. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wing.
I'm just going to echo what Councillor Austin said, basically. I mean, we've repeatedly asked over a number of years, and if you look at parts of the budget, the housing bit, for example, is so well evidenced. Every spend right down to a window is there, well evidenced, well supported by documentation in terms of need. Future liabilities are there, and what we really worry about with the port is are we doing what we should be doing? Is it based in evidence of need? And also, what really worries me about future liabilities. So we already know the cement batch presents us with very much a significant cost to residents because of that original lease agreement. And what we don't want is we need to know that the future that everything that happens on that port is well evidenced. There is a business case, and that we've looked at the worst and best case scenario of any future risk to residents and taxpayers. So, like Councillor Austin, I overwhelmingly support the budget, but that bit just doesn't sit well with us in terms of the evidence and the paperwork. So I will be abstaining as well.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone involved in the preparation of the budget, especially the 151 officer and his team, and I am fully aware of the level of effort involved. As a matter of personal interest, I fully welcome the usage of the new homes bonus towards further in-house homelessness accommodation. As many know, it is exactly how I would have used it. Roughly a year ago, I said these words in this chamber. The Conservative budget proposes to use the 549,000 new homes bonus to pay off debt. The Labour group proposes to amend this budget allocation. We propose to set aside the remainder of the new homes bonus to fund the provision of additional in-house temporary accommodation. I then followed this proposal with the following argument. Property values in Margate alone rose by 14.4% last year. They are predicted to rise again to that level over the coming year. Delaying purchases by 1 year increases the costs of purchase by an estimated 15%, according to predictions, which means that delaying the purchase of property now costs us an additional £82,350 to buy equivalent property in a year's time. There is no debt that we could pay down now that is accruing interest at that level. The argument is not sound and is the opposite of fiscal responsibility. Politics does not have to be oppositional. We are at our weakest when it becomes so, because it blinds us to the potential in ideas and to the good in others, which feels particularly pertinent at the moment. I put forward that argument to Cabinet, Overview and Scrutiny and Council, and my idea was still rejected, in spite of it being fiscally sound. Since I made that argument, property inflation in Margate has increased by a further 10% to 24.5%, and inflation has increased to 11%, an overall likely increase in purchase and development costs of 25.5% in the last year alone. I fought for months to push for the usage of last year's new homes bonus for further in-house temporary accommodation, because I knew that we would be facing extraordinary pressures in the coming year. And with an £800,000 growth in paying for private temporary accommodation, I believe I was more than right to do so. So reading this budget is bittersweet. I welcome wholeheartedly the usage of this year's new homes bonus towards further in-house temporary accommodation, and will support Cabinet in that in whatever way I can, because I believed it was necessary then and I believe it is necessary now. But having had that idea turned down over and over and again, to now see it brought forward in this year's budget, with the previous year's new homes bonus used to pay off a far lower debt, it is painful to see and acknowledge that the buying power that we had last year is now reduced by almost 26%. The potential loss of buying power I predicted last year if we didn't use the new homes bonus then was £82,350. That loss will likely now be far closer to £139,995 due to inflation and further property increases, and we are a year behind where we could be in terms of creating the in-house temporary accommodation we desperately need to, and I would be lying if I said I didn't feel that keenly. This is the history of this proposal, but it has a very, very bright future, and I welcome it fully. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Whitehead. Sorry, who was it?
Jill Bayford.
Councillor Jill Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. I do feel that Councillor Whitehead's proposal last year was totally different. We were looking at using the sum of money available to purchase properties at that time. And I think we're all aware that it would only have financed the maximum of two units. We prefer that we are looking not only at helping people now, but also in the future. And we believed in a strategy where the new homes bonus is added to other sums to fund a number of units, many units in the future. So I feel that the proposal of last year and this one are totally different. Thank you.
Thank you. And any more? Who have we got?
Councillor Ashby.
Councillor Ashby, did you want to come in?
Just briefly, Chair. I thought I was going to have an easy night tonight, but obviously not. I would just like to reiterate thanks to Chris Blundell, the 151 officer, and the team, but also the officers, all the officers that were involved with the Star Chamber. It wasn't just a financial thing. All the directors and department heads came to give their cases, and it was actually very, very worthwhile exercise, and we learnt actually a lot about the different elements and the crossovers between department, etc. But I'd also like to give thanks to the Cabinet, because obviously it was quite an arduous task for us, and I actually think that this administration put together a pretty good budget, and it's not that I just would say that anyway, wouldn't I? But we've tried to be progressive, and we've tried to be generous in whoever takes control of this council in May, to build the foundations for taking it forward. I feel we've come a long way. I think the budget sends out the signal that we are on the way up as a council overall. So, but especially I'd like to mention David Saunders, who has obviously borne the brunt of this whole budget, and he's done a superb job throughout this budget process. So I'd also like to thank Councillor David Saunders for all his work putting this together. Thank you.
And I think we're all agreed on that, aren't we? Thank you very much indeed. Shall we move to the vote now? I turn to the monitoring officer. What's this? Oh, it's from her. It's from her.
Thank you, Chair. Again, in alphabetical order, for, against, or abstain. Councillor Alban. Councillor Ashby. For. Councillor Austin. Councillor Bailey. For. Councillor Banbridge. Councillor Bayford. Jill Bayford. Councillor Robert Bayford. Councillor Boyd. Abstain. Councillor Braidwood. Councillor Coleman Cook.
For.
Councillor Crittenden. Councillor Curry. Councillor Dexter. Councillor Duckworth. Councillor Everett. Councillor Fellows. Councillor Gregory. No, this is the other one. Councillor Garner. Councillor Hart. Councillor Hopkinson. Councillor Huxley. Councillor Keane. Councillor Cupp. Councillor Lace. Councillor Patmore. Councillor Paul Moore. Councillor Amory Nixie. Abstain. Councillor Ovenden. Councillor Parson. Councillor Linda Piper. And Councillor... Abstain, yeah? Abstain, okay. Councillor Pugh. Councillor Rattigan. Councillor Rofe.
Against.
Against. Right. Councillor Rogers. For. Councillor Rosinski. For. Councillor David Saunders. Councillor Maeve Saunders. Councillor Savage.
For.
Councillor Scobie. Councillor Scott. Councillor Shonk. Councillor Shrub. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tomlinson. Councillor Towning. Councillor Vollin. Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Wing. Councillor Wright. And finally Councillor Yates. 2 minutes and I'll count. Right, the result is 44 members for, 5 abstain and 1 against. Budget is agreed.
Thank you very much. After considerable deliberation, we have agenda item 7 behind us. Therefore, moving on to agenda item 8, the budget monitoring for 2022-2023, the report number 1. Again, I call upon Councillor David Saunders.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members, for your support with regard to the budget, but I haven't finished yet. So, budget monitoring report number 1. This report presents a number of revenue and capital budget adjustments that were considered by Cabinet at its meeting on the 13th of October 2022 and I've subsequently recommended to Council for approval. Members should note the budget adjustments relate to one-off expenditure items for 22-23, and as such they do not affect the 23-24 budget that we have just presented and thankfully approved. Chairman, I move the recommendations within the report, Budget Monitoring Report number 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saunders. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Ashby. Do members agree? Thank you very much. Agenda item 9, the Budget Monitoring Report, Quarter 2, 2022-2023. Again, I call upon Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Chairman. This report also presents an in-year budget adjustment for Council approval, as recommended by Cabinet following consideration of the mid-year 22-23 Budget Monitoring Report that was received by Cabinet on the 15th of December 2022. The adjustment facilitates the appointment of interim property surveyors with a focus on generating additional property income for the Council. I move the recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Ashby. Members, do you agree? Thank you very much. The last item on the agenda, agenda item 10, changes to committees, panels and boards. Would members please note that the agenda item 10, changes to these committees, will be deferred to the next council meeting on Thursday, the 23rd of February.